Imagine that you want to fly a drone over Disney World to get some great shots of Cinderella's castle. And in 2020, when the parks were closed due to the pandemic, it seemed like a great idea and opportunity to do so. Well, that same idea occurred to an experienced 40-year-old drone pilot. What he didn't know is that the security guards monitoring the premises would catch him, confiscate his drone, and he would be charged with trespassing. The reason for this? You cannot fly drones over Disney parks in the US, or aircraft for that matter, because the skies above Disney parks are a designated no-fly zone. But what is a no-fly zone? No-fly zones are designated by the American Federal Aviation Administration to important areas such as national monuments, politically important sites, and environmentally sensitive areas for reasons of security or national welfare. So this means that the airspace over Disney parks enjoys the same level of protection as the White House and the Kennedy Space Center. Moreover, they are the only non-governmental locations to enjoy this privilege. Why does this rule exist? And how did it come about? This all began in 1998 when Disney's Animal Kingdom opened. Since the park had live animals, Disney did not want any noisy aircraft flying above and scaring them. They didn't want the animals to get distressed and react negatively towards guests or even possibly attack them. This precaution was more of a professional understanding between Disney World and all the major airlines during this time. The FAA had also requested airlines not fly within 2 miles of the park and also to stay at least 2,000 feet above. Even if someone flew over the park, they wouldn't face any consequences. They would just be requested not to do it again. However, this changed in 2001, right after the 9/11 attacks. The whole country was shaken, and everyone was scared of being a part of large gatherings because it had become clear that large groups were vulnerable, and Disney parks attract around 250,000 visitors per day on average. So, due to concerns regarding the safety of the visitors, the FAA introduced a temporary no-fly rule over the airspace of Disney parks in 2001. In 2003, just 2 years later, this law ended up becoming permanent with Operation Liberty Shield. Operation Liberty Shield is a national plan by the US government that establishes permanent no-fly rules over military and government installations for security purposes. But Disney parks are neither military nor government installations, so why were they included? Since hundreds of thousands of people visit the amusement parks every day, the government thought that giving them the same amount of security made sense. Some people think it is unfair for Disney parks to get special treatment, but there is no denying that they are one of the most popular places in the country, with people of all ages visiting from near and far away. So this level of additional protection is warranted. And sure, the threat of facing a similar attack was one of the main reasons for the no-fly rule, but was that the only reason? No. Another reason was that because of the number of visitors that Disney parks pulled in a single day, brands thought this would be an excellent opportunity to advertise their products and services. But as many people know, advertising inside Disney parks is not allowed. So they came up with a sneaky strategy: flying aircraft with banners over the parks. Disney couldn't allow it, so they clamped down on this by banning any type of aircraft from flying overhead, and with this, stopping brands from advertising from the skies over the parks. The last reason has to do with the experience that Disney wants guests to have while at the parks. When Disneyland opened in 1955, one of the main goals Walt had was that guests visiting the parks could step away from the real world into a fantasy world from his films. And this has been perfected throughout the years. From creating their own color schemes of green and blue that makes partially constructed buildings blend into the surroundings, to hiding scent-pumping machines all around the park that add to the experience, Disney doesn't want anything to disillusion guests. They want everyone to be fully immersed in this magical kingdom and forget the real world that exists outside, at least for a little while. So picture this. You're at Disneyland with your family, trying to have a nice time. You see your favorite Disney characters and want to have a conversation with them, but the constant buzz of planes and drones overhead keeps coming your way. The noise and distraction alone would make several people break the illusion of being in another world. This leads to a bad experience, both for Disney and you. Or imagine how dangerous it would be for someone to fly a drone near the Matterhorn or Expedition Everest and lose control of it. It could end up in a terrible accident, and obviously Disney doesn't want that. And trust us, neither would you. So it makes sense to ban drones. Now that you know why drones are banned in Disney parks, let's talk about what would happen if someone were to break the rules. As we have already established, Disney is pretty strict about the no-fly rule. So if someone were to get caught flying drones, they could get into some serious trouble. Word on the street is that offenders can get fined up to $5,000 and may even face 1 year in prison. But what if it was a genuine accident? In that case, the drone's pilot may get off with a warning or a fine of a few $100s. In either case, it is very likely that the drone will be confiscated and won't be returned, since it was used to commit a crime. Flying a drone over Disney parks is very risky and illegal, so do not take any chances. Does all of this mean that there are absolutely no exceptions to this rule? Not really. Air ambulance flights and any drones or aircraft by the government or the US Department of Defense are allowed as long as they remain in contact with air traffic control at all times. Technically, it is possible to apply for a waiver to fly commercial or private drones and aircraft, but they are hardly ever granted. So for all intents and purposes, there is no chance of you ever getting that coveted drone shot. Now, a while ago, Disney broke its own no-fly rule. In 2014, when Disney was working on adding new things to their fireworks display, they came up with the idea of flying their own fleet of drones. These drones would be flown automatically, creating incredible formations in the air to wow visitors. Disney asked the FAA to grant them special permission, which was approved in 2016. And on November 16th of that same year, they introduced Star Bright Holidays in collaboration with Intel. The drone show was presented twice nightly over the lagoon between Disney Springs and Disney's Saratoga Springs Hotel. The show was beautiful. However, for several reasons, it was quickly retired. For starters, there was no place to store the drones. The no-fly exemption was also temporary. But the most important reason was that the show was held at night, and the FAA stipulates that drones cannot be flown during nighttime. At this point, there were simply too many rules being broken for Disney to continue justifying the show. So they finally put an end to it. This goes to show that nobody can break the no-fly rules. Not even Disney parks themselves. That doesn't mean that no Disney park can have an awesome drone show. Disneyland Paris has no restrictions in this aspect. So for their 30th anniversary this year, they created a new and spectacular show called Disney Delight. This show features 150 color-changing drones that swarm around the centerpiece of Sleeping Beauty Castle before the nightly fireworks show. These are very different types of drones that only weigh 550 grams, and unlike consumer drones, they don't come with cameras. Instead, 9 RGBW LEDs are mounted in a circular array behind a dome on the front. They can change color and turn on and off simultaneously. This is the first drone show to come to a Disney park, and it is truly mesmerizing. We hope to see something like it in the near future at Disneyland or Disney World. And as long as we're answering questions, we have another answer for Disney Parks fans. Why is Peter Pan's flight always so crowded? Click here to find out, and remember to subscribe.